Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Medicinal Monday episode of the Alter Your Health podcast. I'm Dr. Ben.
And I'm Dr. Susanna.
And we are both naturopathic doctors who empower you to heal yourself through whole food, plant-based nutrition, as well as mind-body medicine. And today on the podcast, we are taking a turn into mind-body medicine land. We of course host our Wisdom Wednesday episodes of the podcast that explore mind, thought, consciousness, the human experience, and the brain-body connection. But we're going to take that conversation into more physical symptom land today while talking about the symptom imperative, which is something that Dr. Susanna has been studying. But before we dive into our conversation today, I did want to say that the Alter Health Cleanse is starting on Friday. This is a whole food plant-based cleanse, an all-you-can-eat buffet of nutrient-dense whole plant foods, no calorie restriction, just food and hydration, and people break through plateaus, release weight, and all sorts of amazing stuff happens when you just fuel your body optimally. So if you want to learn more and join us, go to alter.health/cleanse. And yes, the first meeting is this Friday, the 21st of January. The cleanse itself starts on Sunday, so you can do your grocery shopping over the weekend and hit the ground running next week throughout the cleanse, which is like 10 to 12 days. A little bit of choose your own adventure as well in the cleanse. But anyway, that's it for the cleanse. Now let's talk about the mind-body freedom from the symptom imperative.
Yeah, and so this topic is going to be particularly interesting for anyone out there who's experienced or knows someone who's experienced this kind of shifting of symptoms in their own body throughout the year. What I mean by this is I've heard and seen, and I felt in my own body, this experience of, having a symptom somewhere in the body, lasting for, however many months or years. And then it's like we take care of it, right? It's resolved. But then some other thing comes up, right? Maybe it started as pain in our back and then it shifted to pain in our knees once the back pain resolved. Or maybe we had digestive issues, and once those were resolved, we then experienced some joint pain or more tension headaches. Whatever the pattern is, there's this kind of shifting from one area to another area in the body. It feels like some people are constantly working on some kind of symptom they're experiencing. So
yeah, I know. I mean, I was thinking about this myself, and I don't know if I've been subject to that, at least for any long-term period in my life, but for sure I've witnessed it in other people. There's just always something. There's always something. And of course, this brings us into the work of Dr. John Sarno, who we kind of introduced his work. We love the guy. Honestly, really saddens me that I never got to meet him. But we brought up his work much earlier in the podcast. I think it was episode 78 or something. I interviewed Michael Galinsky, who's a filmmaker who made a documentary film about the work of Dr. John Sarno. Great film called All the Rage. We talked about it a couple weeks ago in the context of back pain, and Susanna sharing a little bit of her experience. So yeah, this is one of Dr. Sarno's observations in working with probably tens of thousands of people who had this migratory pain syndrome, which of course he described and we described it as well, tension myositis, or the psychological tension that creates tension in the muscles of the body, which clamps down on circulatory system and nervous system, leading to spasms and chronic pain.
Right. And yeah, just quickly to put this into perspective, this topic into perspective, here on this podcast, we talk so much about what we can do in our physical life to take care of our health, to take charge of our health. But sometimes for some people, there is more needed than just physical intervention. Sometimes there's stuff going on in the mental and emotional realms.
I would say all the time.
Yes.
I would say all the time. And, I think a lot of people kind of go one way or the other. And the way that we, of course, see it is, well, what if we can totally optimize our biochemistry, optimize our metabolic health and put all the good ingredients in, limit toxicity, etc., and have peace of mind? Because I know Dr. Sarno, I think if we were to sit down with him today, he'd say, oh, well, I think a lot of the success that your clients are getting is due to the placebo effect of, just believing that they're doing the right thing for their body. And yes, the placebo effect is powerful. But if we can harness that power of that self-healing regenerative potential within us, and also just optimize our nutritional status and biochemistry, that's the magic. So we always say that like food and mindset are the most powerful medicines. And when we're talking about mindset or state of mind or understanding things, it's really understanding our true nature, right? And it's just what's unfolding and flowing through us.
Right. Well, and the topic of today's podcast episode, the symptom imperative, is actually a phenomenon that can show you whether a symptom resolved based off of the placebo effect or whether you really address the underlying root cause.
Yeah.
And, from my perspective, there are some symptoms that are purely physical in their origins, and there are symptoms that are sometimes mixed. There's a physical element and a mental element. And then there's, of course, the symptoms that are purely mental. So it just kind of depends. But let's talk about...
I think the more accurate way is psychological, not mental.
Yes, psychological.
It's like, that person's mental.
No.
That's like, people used to call me mental when I was in grade school.
Thank you for the correction. But yeah, so let's define what the symptom imperative is. And this was discovered by Dr. John Sarno in his work with chronic pain patients. He saw that, and he called it the symptom imperative because he saw that for these individuals, it was imperative for them to have some symptom at all times that would distract them from feeling the unacceptable emotions that they would judge as unacceptable, whether that be anger or jealousy or rage or whatever it is. But, we all kind of have a set of emotions that we think as bad, we judge as bad. And so we kind of shove them away when they come up. And of course, this idea of tension myositis, just as a reminder from our episode a few weeks ago, the idea is that it's really a protective mechanism that the brain creates so much tension and pain in the body to help you not feel those intense emotions. Even though we might say we would prefer to feel the emotions rather than feeling the physical pain, the brain has a different plan for you. And so the symptom imperative is really how it can manifest is in this shifting of migratory symptoms. So for example, I'll just share an example that happened to me recently because my back pain started about 2 years ago. And I did all sorts of stuff. I went to a chiropractor, I did inversion table, I did all sorts of stuff to help reduce the back pain. And eventually over time, it went away. But immediately when the back pain went away, I developed knee pain in both knees. And it's like, why would that happen? It's not like I was doing anything different on my knees. I also saw this happen way, way, way back when I had chronic joint pain. And I went to a doctor who put me on a therapeutic diet saying, this is gonna heal your joint pain that is stemming from your digestive issues. And as soon as I went on the therapeutic diet, my joint pain went away. But then all of a sudden I developed all of these gastrointestinal symptoms. And the timing you might say, oh, that's a coincidence. But the timing was exact for when I implemented these protocols, these healing interventions that didn't address the underlying cause. They essentially created a placebo effect.
So you're saying that if the healing, like if someone's symptoms are resolved entirely and long lasting, then there shouldn't be other symptoms that pop up like a whack-a-mole. Like you hit something down and then it pops up somewhere else in the body and in a unrelated sort of way. So that's kind of a way to determine to what degree the placebo effect might be playing out.
Right.
Cool. And it's very interesting. I think that like it doesn't make sense to a lot of us that we would prefer to feel physical pain and symptoms than psychological or emotional pain and our emotions, like the fullness of our emotions. Because I think intellectually it's like, come on, I am angry, just let me feel the fullness of the anger, like what the heck. But sometimes that anger is so deep seated and there's so much of it that it's like we let it out in kind of controlled, socially acceptable terms and conditions. But there's more beneath the surface than we sometimes acknowledge or can feel. So yeah, I think about how, like, evolutionarily for human beings, our place in the tribe, our fitting in society is the most important thing. If we are exiled and we are not accepted and we are shunned from society and what we're doing and how we're behaving is not okay, then that means that we will die, like literally throughout the course of human history. So I think there is this deep-seated desire to fit in and to be socially accepted and to not be shunned from society, even though being shunned from society in today's day and age doesn't mean death necessarily, right? And it is kind of weird to think about, well, now in today's day and age also there's so many fragments of society that, like, if we are shunned from our family, whatever that means, then we're embraced by other aspects and circles and whatnot. So in the end, the way that I see it is like there's this real opportunity to be fully 100% authentic and true to ourselves. And when we're talking about like healing the symptom imperative on the deeper psychological, spiritual, emotional level, it just has to do with like full 100% authentic self-expression and self-compassion and love, regardless of what the world, what our family, what our friends might be thinking about us. Because as so many people have said, what people think about us is never any of our business. It's just a reflection of their state of mind in the moment, right? So yeah.
Yeah. So I'd love to just share, some more examples of kind of what symptoms commonly crop up in tension myositis and could be one of those symptoms that pops up as the whack-a-mole in the symptom imperative. Things like pain anywhere. Back pain, neck pain is really common, but could be pain in any of your extremities, could be, even a more kind of scary chronic pain diagnosis like fibromyalgia. Could just be tension headaches, could be migraines, could be allergies, seasonal allergies that, of course, we just attribute to.
Could you say it's anything?
I mean,
like,
I guess
why
you could
bother?
say.
Why bother having a list?
I have this list based off of what Dr. Sarno saw a lot of.
Okay.
A lot of digestive issues, a lot of acid reflux. But what is really interesting about also the symptom imperative is that this symptom can actually be replaced by any other really obsessive behavior or any kind of numbing behavior. So, for example, if someone, developed a drinking problem or developed any kind of obsessive compulsive behaviors, because that thing distracts them so much from the emotion, the pain that they're not trying to feel, that could actually kind of shift the symptom away from a physical symptom more to kind of like a behavioral symptom.
Well, I think also about quote unquote addicts, whether drug addicts or alcoholics or gamblers or anything, sometimes get really obsessed with their health and get really obsessed with fitness, and especially I think like endurance exercise. And I think, I know a lot of people who are in endurance athletics kind of acknowledge some mental health like instability and some vulnerability there. And I know that, of course, like we can replace obsessions very easily. And of course, there's nothing wrong. Like we're all a little crazy in our own ways, right? And there's I think it's okay to be obsessed with things in life. I think that, that the most important thing is to have a degree of self-compassion so that we allow ourselves to be free, rather like, rather than judging ourselves for anything that we do. Because, I'm not an expert in addiction or anything for that matter, but the fact is, like, if we're engaged in an addictive tendency, then like there's just the what isness of that tendency and what we're doing. And then if we're engaged in that and we're also judging ourselves for what we're doing and how we're doing and what and taking on what society thinks of us, and oh well, that person must think I'm awful, or my mom thinks I'm an idiot, or my wife hates me, and we're stacking on the layers of judgment and self-judgment on top of what we're doing, then that just like roots in and anchors in this kind of obsessive need to escape through whatever mechanism or means in our world. So if we just give ourselves some space and freedom to have self-compassion, that's like the most powerful medicine.
Totally. But yeah, I mean, understanding that those obsessive behaviors can play into this symptom imperative, I find is extremely interesting, because we also see examples of people who, started off with an obsessive behavior, whether, it was any kind of addiction or eating disorder, or, yeah, kind of relating to exercise as this kind of like binge thing. And when those individuals clear up those behavioral issues, sometimes what can happen, it's like they heal the drinking issue, but then the back pain comes,
Right.
because they're still needing this distraction from those deeper seated emotions. And so the question is then, how do we break free from that? How do we break free from all of these different examples of the symptom imperative showing up? And you've been alluding to it all along this episode.
But I'm curious. Like you're the one who's closer to the experience than I am in this moment. So how do you break free?
Yeah. I mean, really being honest, this is my answer. Really being honest with yourself and looking at what is causing the chronic tension in the body and eliminating it. And it's so easy for us to look outside of ourselves, for the sources of tension, like, oh, it's my work, or it's this relationship, or it's this, or it's that. But we have to look even deeper than that, and acknowledge that our stress and tension doesn't come from any circumstances outside of ourselves. It all comes from within, generated from our thinking and nothing else. And so, of course, we mentioned this a couple weeks ago as well, that a lot of people who have this tension myositis syndrome are people who tend to put a lot of pressure on themselves, who hold themselves up to perfectionistic standards, who hold themselves up to the unrealistic standard of pleasing everyone. And this internally generated pressure, that is really, I mean, in my experience, that's really the
She's the
source
expert.
of the tension.
You're the
I'm in the middle of it right now.
You are, if not now an expert, you're on your way to becoming an expert in this, Susanna. And I would also just add that, we all have our blind spots as human beings, right? Our view of ourselves and understanding of ourselves is imperfect, and we grow in that and deepen in that as we live. And one of the ways that we can gain insight into the shadows, or the blind spots, is through our relationships, and is through our relationships with other people and our relationships with other things in our life. And any sort of roughness that we experience in our life, roughness in relationship with a partner, or a child, or a parent, or a friend, or roughness in relationship with a political party, or like the group, like that which we have trouble with, is always one of the richest learning opportunities for, insights into what's going on in our internal landscape. So when you were saying, being honest, it's like, yeah, we can only ever be as honest as we can be moment to moment. So we have to live our lives, or we're invited to live our lives with like our eyes wide open as we are, going about our life and making a mess and getting upset and feeling things, but also always taking a look inside with unconditional compassion and love to inquire, where is there room for more wholeness and more understanding and more compassion, for me, and it's a perpetual process. And I think that, it helps me. This is where, my experience helps me so much to know that there is no end game. There is no end result. It's not like, oh, by the age 56, I'll be there or wherever, or I'll have more, or I'll be more peaceful. It's like, no, it's now and now and now and now. And we're in the perpetual now moment doing our best. And the day that we die, we are as close to our health and freedom as this now moment. We're just doing our best and integrating all along the way.
Yeah, beautifully said. And, this is now where we are really embarking into the content, the territory of, Wisdom Wednesday content. So this is a sneak peek into our Wednesday episodes if you have yet to really dive into those. But yeah, I mean, two major themes that are really standing out to me in this answering this question of like, okay, how do we address the root cause of this tension myositis?
How do we get to the symptom imperative?
Right, because also we can say, like, it can be easy for someone to say like, oh, it's because of my personality, of my perfectionistic personality.
Yeah,
But
I'm
we
just
need to
type
look.
A. I'm just type A.
But we need to look at even a layer underneath that. Like, what is personality anyway?
Yeah.
And really, like, what's become clear to me is that it's not about personality. It's about what limiting thought processes, what limiting stories are we buying into on a daily basis? Because those stories, those are the things that I think play into how we show up in relationships, how we show up in terms of, how perfectionistic we are or
Yeah.
whatever.
I mean, even the most type A person, like the just quintessential archetypal type A personality, has experiences of being laid back and letting shit go, and we have the potential to embody all of the archetypes, and also we have the potential of letting all of the patterns that we feel are totally ingrained in us, we can let it go. I mean, I was like, so shy, and I would never, like, I remember going to restaurants when I was a little kid, and like up until I was like 12 years old, I wouldn't even speak with the waiter. I would tell my mom what I would want, or my dad what I wanted, and they would have to like order off the menu for me because I like couldn't even tolerate hearing my voice outside in the world. and it's like, we can let that go. We can let stuff go, and we do let stuff go. And being open to the infinite possibilities of the letting go-ness, whatever the deep-seated patterns and tendencies are, they're just patterns. They're just tendencies.
They're just thoughts.
They're just thoughts.
They're just habitual thoughts. And as we always say in our Wisdom Wednesdays, thoughts are nothing.
Mhm.
Thoughts are formless energy, and they don't have any power unless we believe them to be true.
So I think that we kind of set the stage for Wisdom Wednesday. And it's fun to walk this balance between the mind and the body, and the Medicinal Monday and the Wisdom Wednesday. And that's what we love.
Mhm.
So I guess before we sign off, any last words or announcements?
Join us for Wisdom Wednesday.
All right. And join us for the Alter Health Cleanse. And just feel free to leave any comments, feedback, share this with anyone you know and love. And we look forward to staying in touch and seeing you next time.
Yes. We'll see you on Wednesday.